always have to keep going to another level. So I stand on the shoulders of my successes and my trophies, but I don't sleep in the trophy room.
No sleep.
What up, what up? My name is Lil Santonio. Welcome back to No Sleeping in the Trophy Room, Season 2, right here on REVOLT TV. And I'm back with a very special guest, the good brother, none other than co-founder Soulection, Joe K.
What's up, love?
What's going on?
Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you for taking the time, man.
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate you.
Yeah, man.
It's been a long time coming, man. Appreciate you taking the time.
Of course, man. I know you. I appreciate your persistence. This guy right here has just been, just very. I always appreciate someone who's, consistent with their communication, but not over the top.
Right.
There's times where I've been traveling and stuff, and we've been trying to align this moment. And I always appreciate someone who's just not like spamming me or just pressing.
Right.
'Cause you know how that is sometimes, and so I appreciate you, man. I'm happy to be here. I
Sure.
just got back from traveling, so yeah, man, just adjusting, and it's good timing.
Getting that rest, resetting.
Trying, man.
Dig it, man.
Yeah.
So Joe, there's so many places we could start, man, but I want to start, where it all started for you, man. And, tell me about when's the first time you fell in love with music? Like what was that moment? Was there a certain moment that you heard something that you were like,
Yeah, I just remember there was this, ever since I was maybe 3 or 4, when I can remember actually retract back to an actual memory as a child. My parents just always had good music playing in the crib. No one was so much of a musician per se, but my family always just had good tunes playing. My dad, my mom, my uncles. My mom would play anything from Sade to DMX, to Jay-Z. My dad had like Erykah Badu cassette, and just like classic stuff, and back then, I just turned 30, so I was born in '89, in the early mid '90s, that's when, the golden era of hip hop and R&B was out. So just hearing that and being really young, not really able to understand it, but being at the, here in Cali, being at the barbecues or the pool parties with the family or family friends, and just seeing how people moved and reacted, it was like real life, when you see the Pac videos or see certain things, it was just a good time. So just kind of growing up around that, and just also being, when radio was really crucial, and I had my cassette player and hitting record, because the only time I can hear like my favorite songs is if I literally hit record on the tape deck, and I would just hear some songs that I wanted to hear, because they would be in like a 6 to 12 hour rotation. So the only way I could hear it is if I taped it myself, and then I would just play it back in my own time. So I don't know, I think that's probably when, the light struck, and I kind of got this concept of doing what I'm doing, especially with the radio stuff. But music's always been a part of me, from when I used to play sports to in school, or, in high school, growing up as a teen, and being, going through our moments of depression and just different things, trying to figure your time out in life and what your motive is. That's kind of like all I really had. I always joke around, but music is the only thing that has never did me wrong. Like, I always count on music, and there's a song, there's a moment for everything, so that's why it's like music is really life for me, for sure.
Was there a certain moment that you decided to take it seriously? Like, obviously music was a passion, music is a passion, but was there a certain moment that enabled you to take music seriously? Like, this is actually a profession, we can monetize off this.
Yeah, probably when I graduated from high school. I was 17, it was 2007, and I knew I was gonna go to college, so I knew I was gonna be in the uni system, but I felt that while I'm pursuing my degree as a backbone, because my dad was always like very strict about that, like, always have different options and backups. Don't always put your eggs in one basket. So, and I just wanted to make my family proud. He showed me at a young age that he was in his 30s, mid 30s, late 30s, and got his BA, ended up getting his MBA, and while he was coaching me, while he was helping raise me. So seeing that, I was like, all right, I gotta kind of, he was the first one. So I had to follow that. And then I just knew that music was a passion, but I wasn't sure where it would take me. And I still was uncertain what I wanted to do, but I did have like this this like impulsiveness to want to be on air and showcase new artists and music that I was finding. So when I graduated, I started doing this podcast back then, and I was still going to school and still grinding it out. But every day I would come home from school, and it was digging for music first before homework.
Right.
So that was my rotation in my lifestyle. And I had to retake a lot of classes, honestly, not because I wasn't smart enough, but just because I just wasn't getting my certain projects turned in on time, or I wasn't studying enough for certain exams. So I was just barely, hitting that C mark. And I don't like promote that, or I don't like want people to think that that's okay, but that's just how much music was life for me at the time. And that's what I knew I wanted to do, and I would do whatever it took to get to that point.
So where were you digging? Like, were there like certain record shops that you would go to, or was it like records that, you and your friends had? Like, where would Joe K dig?
A little bit of both. We're both at that age where, some people, like the younger cats, might see us as like the older heads, but we grew up watching from the digital age. We watched from like when it was on terrestrial radio as a primary, when you used to watch MTV, or BET to see and hear the song, the visual for the first time, right? And then we watched it go to like social media and like LimeWire, like you watched it go from like MySpace, right? MySpace Music, LimeWire, then it started progressing into Facebook. Then you had like SoundCloud and Bandcamp and all these things, and iTunes was a thing, but it wasn't like it is today with streaming. So I've literally watched all that grow while watching on the DJ side, watching things go from physicals, and cassettes to CDs and vinyl, and from vinyl going into Serato and going to the digital stuff and everything becoming MP3. And so I've watched all those things change. So I would say when I decided I wanted to DJ, I was about 8, around the same time, but I didn't buy my first decks, my turntables, until I was about 19, 20 years old, so about just a little over 10 years ago. And so the digital age was already intact, Serato. So most of the files and music that I was into was unreleased music or things that weren't pressed on vinyl or physicals. It was things that were like edits, remixes, just beats. Like if you were making some fire beats and you dropped something yesterday, it's really unlikely that you're gonna press it on vinyl. One, it's super expensive, and two, I get it on the spot. So it was just easier for me to spin those things on the fly. I would get something. Sometimes I would find, like 20 releases in one day, and I would just go through it, put those tracks together, 80 to 100 tracks, and make a 2-3 hour mix that same night, 2-3 in the morning. So it just depends, and just having that quick turnaround time was what it was about, just taking something, being impulsive, and then showcasing it to the world. And that first year, it was like, I think I had like 30,000 subscribers from that podcast, and this was pre-Instagram, pre-everything, it was just like MySpace bulletins, blogs. I used to use blogs a lot back when they were relevant, and that's how I was just finding MySpace music.
That's so dope, man.
Yeah.
Tell me about this date right here, January 24th, 2011.
Yeah, that was the spawn. That was the first date of Soulection Radio, and the launch of Soulection as a platform / record label collector. That was the first day. So that was the first week of the semester over at Long Beach State for me. I had transferred from community college, and me and my partner at the time, who created the logo, him and I had been working on the concept of Soulection for a couple years. So it's been around almost going on 9 years, but in reality, the concept has been around for 10 or 11. And I've been doing this for 13 years. So the first 3 or 4 years was laying down the foundation of the networking and building those relationships with the producers, the artists from all over the world. So when it came down for Soulection to launch, I already had those relationships. So I was like, yo, I'm finally starting something proper, leaving the podcast behind, but taking some of that foundation, and we started something new. And so I knew that in order for me to have my own radio show, I had to, at least on a university station, because no one on terrestrial radio believed in me or knew who I was yet. So I had to create my own identity. So I used a podcast, and then when I started that, once I got to orientation week, I spoke to the GM and the PD over at the university station. It was K Beach at the time, and I just told them who I am, what I do, send them a few links, and then like they put me on air the first day. So that day, January 24, 2011, was the first day of show number 1. We're now on like show for 432 as of this time, 430 plus, and now it's on Beats 1, and it's just been a crazy, slow progression over the past 8-9 years. But that was the point where we dropped that, and then we dropped a compilation that day, and from that point on, man, we just kept it moving.
So what was like the mindset of Joe K at that time, K Beach? Like what was that? What was the strategy? What was the thinking?
I was just young, hungry. I still felt like a lot of people didn't understand me, and mind you, if I was doing a live show like at the time, I don't know, I was probably getting like somewhere between like 70 to a couple hundred listeners like early on, and then every week I just would upload it to Mixcloud at the time, and so again, I was just figuring out platforms where I can upload, because I'm really big on demand and playback, because the reality is that not everybody could listen live. You know what I'm saying? It's like if I say, hey, I'm going live right now, I mean, we live in a world where people just got their own agendas and stuff and are busy. So having something where people can listen back to and find the track list was always essential to me, to be able to educate and inform people where they could find, one, the artist, whether it was unreleased or not, they could find more music. So the mindset was just always to inform and to contribute back, to give back to these artists who were making like crazy, amazing music, but they just needed a platform for people. And even though I wasn't that big at the time and no one really knew who I was, I just felt I had the passion and the consistency that within a year or two, it turned from a couple hundred people to a couple thousand, and then every year, once certain platforms like Instagram and SoundCloud really started to take off, those things starting to become really, exponential. So yeah, I was just hungry, man. I was going to shows and just networking, man.
I'm pretty sure like all the producers and other DJs that you were, essentially just putting on your show, their gratitude had to have been, through the roof for everything that you were doing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they were, but I think when I was younger, my communication skills weren't as like poised as they are now, and I probably came off a little like aggressive or like really like just really excited, really passionate. So like if you made beats, for example, and I just happened to hear it on a mix, or you released something but it wasn't out, I would email you on site, or I would message you and be like, yo, I'm doing a mix of what I do, can I get that? And sometimes I rub people the wrong way, but I learned how to communicate eventually. So I was probably initially like, they didn't know who I was, and I was like the annoying young kid, like always trying to find the music, but it wasn't really about me. Maybe they were saying, oh, he's just trying to come up off my music, like this is my music, I'm gonna play it, no one else can play this shit. But I was really just passionate, like this shit is so dope that I just want more people to hear it. Like more people need to know about this music, and what can I do to help? But sometimes it didn't always come off like that. So I look back and I'm sure I came off a little strong, but now I don't really got to say much. I feel like I got the resume and the track record, and now I'm just playing music that I love still, and still I prefer to put someone on that's like unknown.
Because in essence, it's a selfless act. You're putting people onto your platform, and you're sharing their music with the world.
Yeah.
So it's like that's extremely selfless, man.
Yes, sir.
That's dope. So talk to me about some of the uphill battles of being like a one-man army in the beginning. When you're thinking about quality control, how people are perceiving your product, how people are seeing it, what it's sounding like. In the beginning, were you very hands-on? How was that? What was that thinking like when it came to quality control?
Yeah, the quality control and the just being very selective. That's kind of where the concept of selection comes from. It's like two words in one, but it's everything is hand curated, and that term could be used a bit loosely, but being able to, I think the foundation and the trust that the people give to Soulection and put on us is like comes from the everything being hands-on, and every show we do, like if it's a live show, every artist that we showcase, that we've released music with, every single song, every piece of merch, every post we do on the socials, man, like everything is handpicked,
Right.
you know, and you just can't really explain it, but it just feels right. But you know, we really believe that, you know, quality over quantity. So I think that's been a big thing, because you know, you can fire off a bunch of things and hope that certain things are just hitting people over the head and landing and connecting with someone, and that works. But for us, I feel like by being selective about what we do, that's really separated us and helped us. You know, people know, like when we speak up or say something, it's like, okay, they're speaking because they have a purpose. They're not just using their platform into a point where we lose the trust because the quantity or the quality of the content goes down. So I've always been just really hands-on, because I mean, first of all, no one's gonna do things the way you would do them, you know what I'm saying? And especially if you're the visionary and the face or the mind behind something, sometimes no matter who you bring in, you know, there's just some people who can't execute the way you do. Some people know how to assist. You know, it's just about finding people's roles, but I'm just very hands-on, and I take pride, and I just want to make sure it's done right, even if I got to spend more time on it sometimes. So yeah, early on, I mean, I was doing the accounting for Soulection, and I wasn't no business major, but I had to do what I had to do. I'd be in class at Long Beach State doing, like, you know, at the time we were using Bandcamp, so it was like, what was it? It was like a donation thing, so it was like name your price. You didn't have to. You could download it for free. The release or the EP, the single, whatever, the compilations that we're putting out, they were free. But some people wanted to donate, so whatever we made bread on, like whoever was part of those projects, I would just, you know, I would sum it up, you know, month to month, and try to break down like a percentage off what we agreed to what was fair. But I would be in class doing that, you know, or they would send me their demos, and then I would go through and pick the songs and which ones I found. I would talk to them, hey, these are the ones I feel, this is why, I know you like this one. So I was really collaborative and hands-on. And then as we started to grow and I started getting busier, delegating became a thing, and I had to learn how to step back and how to allow other people to help me, because it just became a point where it started becoming too big and stressful for me to just do by myself. So building a team was like the next step, but that came along like 2-3 years, and it came naturally. People came to me because they were so enthusiastic and inspired by what we had created, that they wanted to figure out how to be part. So, you know, I started like letting certain people in if I vibe with them and felt they had something to offer.
Yeah. So how important, just on the topic of team, you know, how important is teamwork to Soulection? You know what I mean? Like, I know you have, you know,
we have a handful of people. Yeah, it's a small team.
Creatives.
You know, it's a small team in terms of the back end on the admin side. There's maybe like 7 of us in total. And you know, there's been people who've been around in the beginning of time and who are here no longer, and much love to them. And I've literally, not just on the music side, but I've watched like photographers, I've watched people behind the scenes, all sorts of different people, creatives and great minds come into Soulection and now have great roles and positions for other companies or their own or other places. So I'm really happy to watch people grow as people, as individuals. And you know, it's almost like Soulection was college, Soulection was university for people, and we're still learning. As I like to say, it's always been my internship. But teamwork, man, is so important. Like, we're constantly on group text messages with everybody and on conference calls all day, and just using different platforms, emails, and we're just always exchanging ideas and things and delegating. I think, like I said, it's really important to embrace other people and to allow them to come in and not like micromanage everybody. So again, that's when you're the only one running your business, that's something that's a skill, and that's an asset that you have to kind of gain. Because if you become too hands-on to where you don't allow people that you're quote unquote allowing to do their job, but you're not allowing them to do it, and then you're gonna have problems. you know what I'm saying, and people aren't gonna be happy, and then you're just gonna be stuck on your, on your own at the end. So, I understood that at a certain point, so I took a step back.
So Joe, I read that that you said in the beginning, Soulection did a lot of business off of handshakes, and then you had to restructure to take your whole operation to the next level.
Yeah.
That's a great opportunity that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily recognize when it is time to restructure and take your whole operation to the next level. Man. So just give me a riff on what what the thinking is there, and how do you recognize an opportunity when it's time to, kind of level up?
Yeah, a lot of the early, releases we did and things that pertained, that were monetized, they were off of handshakes, and a lot of that just had to do with, just being new to the game and not having like a true foundation, or not having like a general manager or like a business manager and things like that, someone that had experience, because we had to learn this on our own. So a lot of the great thing is that the relationship, the music and the connection was there just genuinely already, but just I don't care, at this point who it is, family or not. I think it's just always the right thing to do is to establish just like what terms are and what people are making on both sides, because I feel like people, when they have their incentive and they know their value and they know what they're getting in return for their work, everybody's happy, everyone's excited. Or even if you got to negotiate and meet in the middle, it's just important to have everything, because when money comes in or when things change, people either forget what the terms were or what was like communicated in the beginning. Our mindsets early on compared to 3 to 6 months to a year later change. So what we were thinking was cool then, they may be like, nah, I'm in a different place, or I see the numbers now, I see whatever the traction is, so I actually want more, and then it just gets weird, and you hate to lose somebody, whether it's personal or just business, over numbers. You know what I'm saying? It's never, it is deep, because that's what keeps the bills paid, the lights on, and feeds our family. So it is important. I'm not going to downplay it, but I'm saying it sucks when situations like that, when a business thing gets in the way of a great relationship. So yeah, man, we recognized that early, and we just wanted to go back, and it's just important to have your numbers right, to have your paperwork right. I just think if you want to be successful or have longevity, in not just in music, in any field, any business, you want to make sure your taxes are paid and all that. So those are things that I had to learn, and my team had to learn along the way. But it's so important, and I think, the thing is, it can slow down the process. If you just hear the music and you want to get it out that night, you can do it, but sometimes you got to wait, because you want to make sure that the terms are on point and that everybody's happy. So that's just been something that it's just step number one to everything we do. Once we find somebody we want to work with, or vice versa, we get to the creative side, but the foundation of the business is so important.
Right, and I think that's like a sign of of success, man. When you have to really level up the process, because things are growing, things are going good, and you have to assess what you need to elevate to that next level, man. Yeah. So I think that's an opportunity that people should definitely kind of just look for, to your point, in any business.
Yeah.
So I want to touch upon a milestone. Describe that moment when you got the call for Coachella. I really from afar, I feel like I was on the sideline, but when I saw you post that, I was so happy for you, bro, for real, man.
I appreciate that, man. That was a great moment, especially because a lot of people don't know, but back in 2012, 2013, we actually started in the campgrounds at Coachella. Like, we had got, a call to program some like campground activations.
Wow.
and do the music. So to go from that, and it took about 6 to 7 years to get to one of the stages out, during a pretty good slot. That was a great story, man, and that was something that we'll never forget. But yeah, the way Coachella works is they usually book a good like 10 months out from the festival. Mm-hmm. So we had already been contacted about it in July of 2018, right? So we had already known for some time, even though the lineup doesn't get announced till I think January of the beginning of the year. So yeah, we had to like keep that keep it tight. But it was a great feeling. I remember I was actually in Australia at the time. I was touring, so I was in Australia when we announced when the lineup got dropped, and it was just a special moment, man. I mean, like I said, just to think back to every single thing that we've been through and that we've accomplished, and to just think that majority of Coachella's lineups are mostly artist driven, so there's not too much room for like DJs and producers unless you're like really big, you know, like you're a producer that has like a lot of, you know, big hits or collaborations with other vocalists and stuff, and there's not that many. It's mostly artists. So it was great to be a part of that alumni and to be part of this past year. And it was dope because I ended up doing some some interview work for Coachella on the live stream. So I was able to get some experience with that and step aside. It was stressful because I was literally having to interview a few big artists before our set. So it's like I had to mentally prepare for two different sides, you know, as you know, being a presenter or having an interview, you're on live stream, you want to be prepared and it's a big platform, so it was a bit anxious and a bit nerve-wracking, but to get that experience and to do that and say that I did it and also play at the same time, and I'll never forget that. It was dope. It was a great opportunity, and there's a lot of, because it's only a 2-hour drive from LA. There was a lot of people from the city that came out for us and pulled up to our stage. So it was dope, man. It was great to share that.
Man, it must have been so exciting for you and the whole team, bro.
Yeah, our family. Yeah, it was great, man. It just showed us like, damn, anything is possible to be on here with all these big names and part of the lineup.
Word.
Yeah.
So Joe, this is no sleeping in the trophy room. You know, it's,
That's real.
This whole platform is all about.
It's a great name, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's all about motivation, information, and sharing that with those who are seeking it. You know, so what are some power plays that you would give to somebody who's looking to start a movement, and really kind of share it with the masses, man? Like, what's something that somebody who's aspiring to do something like you're doing, or do it even bigger, like, what's some power plays that you could share with somebody?
Power plays that I can think of off time, and there's so many, man. I mean, I'm still learning literally to this day, this moment. Right. I don't have all the answers, but I will start off by saying that there's literally no right formula. There's no end all be all formula or style. You got to get it how you get it. And so for what works for me may not work for somebody else, especially my story, because I came up different. The timing of when Soulection came up as well and myself was a different era. The way I came up and the things that I did to get to this point, I don't even know if they would even work in this present time. So that kind of makes things interesting, right? Because we live in a moment, in an era where things are so disposable and accessible at the same time. Anyone can be anyone could make music and upload it the same day to all streaming services. Anyone could create a business account on socials and Instagram and post whatever. You know what I'm saying? Anybody can literally come up at any moment. And you have, anyone can DJ, anyone can make beats, anyone could do anything.
The resources are there.
The resources are there, but because of that, on the flip side, what you have is just like a lot of oversaturation. So now it's like harder to filter through all the upcoming and new things that are coming out unless you have somebody that you trust that are presenting that to you and that's actually connecting with you on it, because now it's like, you scroll down your feed on whatever it is and literally in seconds you're getting hit from different things, personal, creative, media,
right.
And within seconds you already forgot what you just double tapped on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you got to do a lot now to stand out, whereas for me, when I was coming up, there wasn't many people at all doing the types of music and the types of things and the style, the way we were presenting ourselves. And so now we kind of like set the foundation, I feel, for a lot of people. And now I see a lot of like, you know, indie digital type of labels and people like in the same style of sound and concept of what we do, collectives and crews and people who came up out of SoundCloud and things like that. That's where we come from. And I see a lot of people, even though SoundCloud and some of these platforms that we came up with aren't as dominant as they once were when we were coming up, I've been able to travel the world, and these people that we've inspired, that I've inspired, come to the shows, come up to me and share their story or share a link or tell me like, yo, this is my crew. They introduced me to the people, and they remind me of me when I was at that point and I was their age and younger. So it's really crazy and inspiring to see like this is what we've built, and this is worldwide. So pretty much where I'm going in terms of the power plays and some foundation is just like, you know, again, the formula is always different. Having consistency, having your own lane. Like, you can be inspired by somebody or by a crew or by a platform or something that inspires you, but there's a difference from being inspired by something or somebody, and there's another thing to replicate it and copy it.
Right.
Once you start copying something, it's like it's already been done, and you can never really outrun or outdo the originators who are still going strong with it, because they're always going to be they're the originators of it, and they're always going to come correct with what's next. They're already you know, three months to a year, a couple years ahead of the next ideas, while you're just trying to emulate what's being done. So it's important to like take those inspirations, but create your own lane and do your own thing. There's nothing wrong with being inspired, but create your own and just try to do something a little different. Something I always tell. Build a strong team of people you trust. Sometimes be careful of letting, you know, friends or certain close ones in, because if business or things don't go right, unless you have a strong foundation in your relationship, business or personal or family, it can ruin your relationships with certain people. So just know, you know, always be wise about who you bring in. Pay your taxes for sure. I always like to say for every, whether it's personal on a business level, I always try to put 20 to 30% of those things. Because as a freelancer or as a creative, your own independent business, putting 20 to 30% away from every payout, everything puts you in good standing. And trying to make those quarterly payments, so you don't at the end of the year, you're not over here paying. You're not working in the following year for taxes and business that you didn't account for the year or the past year. You know, right. The past 2 years. That's frustrating when you feel like you're drowning financially because you didn't take care of shop. And yeah, you might have that money in front of you, but like, just be smart with it. You know what I'm saying? And try to get the right people, the right minds around you, and just try to follow what feels right, because as you grow, you know, there might be certain people that come in your ear and trying to steer you and direct you in the right ways. And I'm just a big believer of following like your gut, your intuition, you know, just doing what feels right. You might not have the answer, but just having that right foundation of teammates and just that foundation, I think, is super vital, man, to like having longevity. And last but not least, I'll just say that not getting too caught up in like social media and comparing to other people, because everybody has their own speed, their own timing. So, you know, like even for me, people see me like they may have barely found out about me recently or a year or two ago, and they'd be like, oh man, I want to be like him. And like they've only maybe followed the story for so long, but they may have skipped or missed certain parts of this. They didn't know that the struggles that I went through coming in, or that I've been doing this 13 years, not 2 years or 5 years. So social media can kind of create these like shortcuts for people. It's not their fault, but people just see these success stories and they want to shortcut to it, and it creates this fast, this like obsession with wanting to compare themselves, and they get depressed or start getting in their feelings if they ain't hitting a certain plateau like the people that are inspiring them. And it just creates this whole mental breakdown thing, and it sucks to see people go through that. So again, it's just accepting, man, that everybody has their own timing, and just to like, you know, like when I look at Anderson .Paak, or even looking at recently the homie D Smoke, you know, who just run the rhythm and flow competition. He's like 32, he's like 33, he's in his 30s, and he's a professor at UCLA speaking Spanish, you know, as an African American out of Inglewood. And to the fact that he is literally, boy went up like 500K followers on Instagram in literally like a couple days, went viral.
That's big.
And it's like crazy. It's amazing to see that. Now he's inspiring so many people, and I think the stories like that are dope. Like again, like Anderson .Paak, to see him in his 30s, you know, he got his break and signed to Dr. Dre. I remember him when we were playing shows together, and he was drumming for other artists, other bands, you know, as a drummer, not even him as an artist. And to see him just keep grinding it out and see where he's at now selling out Madison Square Garden, and just, it's crazy, man. So again, everybody has their own time, and it's never too late to follow your passion or like do what you love. Do it for yourself first.
Yeah, and I mean, you definitely can't skip no steps, man.
Nah.
If you skip those steps, you might miss a lesson.
Don't sleep in the trophy room, man. Like,
you know
what I'm saying? So yeah, man, work harder than your situation, as I like to say. No excuses over here.
That's dope.
Yeah.
So I got put on to Soulection around episode 178.
Dang. Oh, you remember?
178, man.
Was there a guest on that one? I gotta look back. I've had so many.
Man, I feel
was
like
it like a solo show? Was it one of those ones you just like play?
I believe it was a solo show.
That seemed like one of those 3-hour sessions too, because I've gone from 3 hours or 2 hours or 3 back to 2. But those were the grinding days. I'll tell you that, bro. Sleeping on the floor to finish those shows. I was spending all day to get those shows done.
Like that.
And executed, uploaded, losing sleep, stressed out, not eating. And I think that's why it's funny to think back to those times, because it's crazy from then to now, you know, but it paid off.
Right.
You know, those are things that a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
Those stressful times, you know.
And that's so, the contrast is so dope. I mean, you're telling me you were like losing sleep, you know, to put this episode out, and I'm on the other end of the speaker, and you know, at that point in time, it's crazy because I was like, I had like just lost my job, I just broke up with my girl at the time, and I was kind of fucked up in the game. Actually, I was spending like a month in Puerto Rico. I was just like, yo, let me get out of here.
Amazing.
I was in Puerto Rico for a month, and you know, that's why I found Soulection, man. And to your point earlier, like, you know, music is healing, you know, and that's what Soulection did for me at the time. Just musically, man, it was like therapy. So fast forward, you know, now you're at episode 430, 433.
Yeah, 430 and counting.
So, you know, how has things changed, man, from then to now? Like, as far as, you know, how you approach the shows, you know, like formats, you know, like certain vibes you go for, like.
You know, I still do the show every single week since the beginning of time. Even if I'm traveling, I still find a way to get those shows done every week. Because at this point, it's bigger than me, and it's more of a community service to the world. That's my community service, you know. There's people out there. I've met people, man, that like, I'll never forget. I remember I was in Montreal. I was doing the Soulection radio tour, the first one ever. I was in Montreal, and I had this woman, older woman, who, because like the show really connects with people all over, all different age brackets, and I really appreciate that. And a lot of that comes down to the type of music I play, because a lot of it's for like grown listeners too. You know, it's not just about what's new and what's like relevant. So there was this woman, her and her son would listen to the show, but she had cancer, and when she was going through chemo, and he's actually a doctor. They would listen to the show together, and that was their bonding time every Sunday. They would listen to the playback. So when she shared that story with me, and I actually got to meet her in person, and we're at a crazy sold out show, and people are turning up, and I just made sure she had a good seat in the backstage, and she was able to just peep and just watch like this come to life. Those stories are crazy. Hearing like I was in Dubai, and this guy shared a story how he had a fear of flying, and the first flight he ever took was to go see me play in Dubai, and just to hear those, man, I'm like, man, I can't stop, because trust me, man, there's been times where I have wanted to give all this shit up. I wanted to quit, not because I'm a quitter, but just because like I just have other things that I want to do, and it gets exhausting and it's demanding, and it's hard to get certain things, because the radio show literally is the center of my weekly life. I literally base my whole schedule around the show. I gotta stop everything I'm doing. I gotta continuously dig. If I have a guest, I gotta stop. It's just a lot. It's a lot of work for those 2 hours. And so, you know, making those sacrifices and doing those things, there was times where I wanted to give it up, but I think about these people. I think about how many artists I've helped share and put people onto, to where they've gone to their shows, they buy their merch, they support them and spread the word to their people, and it just goes, you know, it just becomes a community thing. Those are just stories that I think about that I'm like, man, this is bigger than me. You know what I'm saying? And it got to a point too where eventually I was broke as hell doing it, and then it started to put food on the table for me. So that's another thing that I can't give up too, is that it provides for me and my family, and you know, I'm able to give back at the same time. So just the thing where I'm at now, I mean, the format and the energy is still there. I'm still digging as hard as I could. I'm still bringing on artists that are still unknown or not as like popular, or people may not even still know of, and I really take a lot of pride in doing that, because that's the foundation of what we do, and I never want to get away from those roots. And I think the lights for Soulection will always be on as long as we keep putting people on to new music, because artists come and go, people come and go, but people looking for new music, artist discovery will never get old.
So Joe, during your travels, I see you picking up the camera. You know, what role does photography and videography play when you're moving on, you know, when you're globetrotting, you're moving around?
Yeah, it's super important just because of the fact that I just like documenting things. And at first it really came because when we were on tour and we were traveling, we couldn't afford to have like a you know, a videographer or our photographer, our shooter. So because the fees weren't enough and everything, we couldn't do that. One of us had to do it. And I've always just been into visuals and just capturing, taking photos. At first it started on my iPhone, and then it got to a point to where I just felt like, okay, the quality needs to step up. So then I just remember buying my first like camera, started just hitting record on it, taking photos and turning that around, having those raw clips. And just because I just always thought about too, like if we ever did a documentary one day, you never know where that footage can come into fruition. So these were just all things that where it stemmed from. And then I just started to build a love for it, started shooting on film, like doing film photography. And yeah, it's just another outlet. Also for like the radio shows, the artwork of every episode is always like a different image, a different photo. Some are from our travels, some are from other people that we meet or find online. So the visual representation for Soulection is so important, and even for myself personally and all the stuff I do, is like before they could even hear the music or things, they might just see that cover, the album cover, that artwork, the design to a show, the flyer. And if the visual is captivating, then you know it kind of brings people in. Oh, what is this? This looks dope. And then they click on the link, and then the rest is history. So it's really important to kind of, you know, captivate that. So yeah, the visuals and the photography, the videos, all that stuff, the animations, all go hand in hand with what we do. Again, it goes back to the curation side and just like making sure the visual and audio go hand in hand.
Dope, man. I follow the account, man, Joe K Travels.
Yeah, man.
You know?
Yeah.
But what do you shoot on right now?
Right now, I have like 4 or 5 different cameras, but my main 2 shooters, I have a Contact C3, it's a Japanese camera, both of them actually, and then I have a digital camera, a Fuji X100F. That one's pretty good. I like point and shoot cameras, but I have like a Sony A7 series camera. But my thing is I travel so much, I just like being light. I like things I can put in my little bag and just pop out and just be quick with it. Because once you start carrying around the big joint, I'm at a point too where like we have our shooters touring with us now, so I kind of leave the bigger things up to them, and I like shooting B-roll and just more things, street photography. That's my thing. I love capturing raw moments, or I'm always around a lot of great artists and cool people and behind the scenes stuff, so I like capturing and documenting the BTS, the behind the scenes side of things, because it's more personal and it's more of an understanding for like the process. So yeah, I like to just do that, be the one behind the camera.
That's dope, man.
Yeah.
So, you know, every champion has their mantra, right? That thing that they move to, or that, you know, that phrase that's on the wall that they slap before they leave the locker room. you know, what's your champion's mantra, man? You know, what's that beat you move to, or that phrase or reminder, or something that you live by that, you know, that just reminds you why you do what you do every day?
Yeah, I mean, I literally, I mentioned it earlier, but just the phrase of like, work harder than your situation, such a like basic or could be perceived as a cliche thing, but to me, it's like everyone has problems, everyone had something that's an obstacle in their life, but at some point, like, what are you gonna do? Like, keep using that as an excuse? You know what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong, some of these things are legit physical or mental factors to us continuing on with whatever it is, and I'm not trying to downplay that, but at the end of the day, at some point, if you really want to do whatever it is that you're trying to do in life, or obtain certain goals, then you got to work harder than your situation. So whatever it is, personal, physical, whatever, you got to just figure it out and go harder. So, and that's why, to me, I always try to use sports as a way to connect with things, because I'm like, I love basketball, and being from LA, growing up to Lakers and Kobe and during that era. So like the Mamba mentality is something I always really, thrive for. Like watching him, play through injuries and, tear fucking his AC. What did he tear? He tore his Achilles. You know what I'm saying? KD just tore his Achilles, but it's like my man, Kobe just still shot free throws, didn't get carried off, walked off the court like a G. And I love the fact that he was in the gym 4 or 5 a.m. shooting, working out, and then coming back later on, and working out again and perfecting shooting 1,000 shots, 1,000 free throws. That's the kind of mentality and work ethic that I try to carry on. So that whole working harder than your situation, and how bad do you want it? How bad do you want to separate yourself from everybody? Those are the things. We all have, 24 hours in a day. Everyone might be in a different time zone, but it's like, it's not about how much time you spend on something, more about what did you do in that time that counts. You know what I'm saying? You can spend, 15 hours in a day on something, but you might have been on Instagram or been shooting the shit for half the time, or all, 80% of the time, but someone might have spent only 5-6 hours, but executed and got it done. You know what I'm saying? So it's really about how you use your time management. So those are just all these things that I've picked up, and I try to really thrive on. You know what I'm saying? Waking up early, getting my routine done, working out, eating, cooking, all that stuff, having all my shit laid out, and then just getting to work and just going beast mode on it. So those are all things that are part of the foundation.
So work harder than your situation.
Yes. Work
That's
harder
dope,
than your
man.
situation.
Joe, man, I want to thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Stepping into the trophy room, man. It's been a long time coming.
Sure.
And again, man, I'm super inspired by everything you and your crew are doing. And I look forward, to the next one, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I'm glad we did this, bro.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, man. Love.
You always have to keep going to another level. So I stand on the shoulders of my successes and my trophies, but I don't sleep in the trophy room.